Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner. And I am your host, retired Army First Sergeant Paul Holbert, coming to you live from Northern Virginia. And we're going to meet tonight's guest here in just a moment. But before we do, I just want to remind everyone, remember, this is our veteran-centric show that showcases the lives and experience of many of our nation's veterans from across the country. So we are happy that you have joined us this evening. Before I introduce tonight's guest, let me just say a word of thanks to both of our wonderful sponsors, Quest Jewelers of Merrifield, Virginia. I think we have a very nice Mother's Day ad for Quest Jewelers tonight that you'll enjoy, but I guarantee you, Pete and Juan Tain of Quest Jewelers, if whether you're looking for a particular special commercial piece or that custom made design, contact Quest Jewelers and they'll be glad to help you out. Trust me, I know, because my wife has had me purchase quite a few from there, specially designed pieces, and they're really beautiful. We also want to thank Nationwide IT Services in Fairfax, Virginia. Nationwide IT Services is a service-disabled veteran-owned small business owned by former retired Army warrant officer C.K. Park. C.K. and his crew can provide all types of professional and business services for your organization, whether it's IT, professional management, training, or whatever your needs may be. He and his group of professionals can sure provide it. So contact them for more information. So I want to bring on tonight's guest. We have with us tonight retired Sergeant First Class Jim Pritchard, a Vietnam veteran of the 101st Airborne Division. And Jim also resides in Northern Virginia, and he holds a master's degree from Campbell University and a bachelor's from Fayetteville State University, both in North Carolina. Now, Jim's been involved not only with the Army, but in a long civilian civil service career. And I'll let him share some of that with you as we go through the show. So, Jim, thank you for joining us tonight.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Paul, and with all your listeners. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's always great to see the variety of veterans that we get on the show, and you know, one thing that's always of interest to, especially for the viewers of the show who aren't necessarily veterans, you know, we like to help them understand where we're coming from. So I'd like to, as we start your story, and I know you spent a 20-year career in the military and served in Vietnam, but before we talk about that a little bit more, can you share with us your experience of what drove you to join the military?
Well, it was chance and happenstance, I believe. I was working after high school in a factory in Columbus, Ohio. I worked for Western Electric and Bell Telephone Labs. And it was an interesting job, but really nowhere to go. And it really wasn't a lot of fun, but it paid the bills. And all of a sudden, I was at the post office one day and I saw this brochure from the Army recruiters. So I called them and I went down and talked to them. And they were very straight with me. They said that they wanted me, and that I remember him saying on my departure there that I would remember him when I was carrying 2 duffel bags down on my head,
Yeah.
down a company street. And by golly, he was correct. He sure was.
You know what that kind of brings to mind. I ran into one of my drill sergeants. I finished basic training in 81, ran into this drill sergeant in 1994, my last tour in Germany, when I was inducted into the Sergeant Morales Club. And the reception after the induction there was one of my old drill sergeants. So, yeah, you never forget them, though, do you?
No, indeed. I remember their names, Sergeant Zach and Sergeant First Class Harris were my drill sergeants.
Yeah. So if you don't mind me asking, what year was that?
I went to basic in October through December of 1969 at
my goodness.
Fort Jackson.
You're one of the old soldiers.
We were the third company to get that brand new M16 rifle. We thought we had it all. We thought we had
Yeah.
the best of all modern equipment. Little did we know.
So you finished basic, and is that where you went straight into the 101st?
No, afterwards I went to, of course, advanced individual training. I went back to my old stomping grounds in Baltimore, Maryland, to the old U.S. Army Intelligence School,
Oh,
where I learned how to be an imagery analyst. And then from there, I went down to Fort Benning, Georgia, and went through the Infantry Officer Candidate School at Fort Benning, Georgia.
okay.
Now, you might notice from my short resume that I gave you that I did not graduate.
Yeah.
I learned quite a bit,
Yeah.
but I was a 19-year-old kid at the time and ill-suited for the role that would befall me.
Yeah.
I know we had a lot of people of that age group who did, but they were probably better balanced and more mature than I. But I can't say that I hated the experience, because it was a very good learning experience, even
Oh, yeah.
though I did not. I was 3 weeks from graduation when they asked me that maybe I wanted to do something else, like go to Vietnam.
Well, it's interesting though, because all the time that you and I both we spent in the military, I don't know that you could say there was any training experience that you didn't come out of with something from it. And I think that's true for most of us.
I try to explain to people who don't have much of a brush with the military that in the military, they teach you from day one how to lead and how to take over the position of the next person over you.
Yeah.
So that was ingrained in every day of my military experience up until the very end. And for that, I carried that off into my civilian career. And
Yeah.
whereupon you and I met years later at the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Well, where did you? I know you spent some time in Vietnam. Can you share that with us?
Oh, absolutely. I was first assigned to the 101st in Phu Bai Base Camp, where I spent the majority of my time. But the war was winding down, and this was in 1971, 72.
Yeah.
And in 72, they started to send the units of the 101st back to the States. And I had, once again, I think they said 12 days, too few in country. So I had to be reassigned.
Oh gosh.
So, but it wasn't bad. I went down to Saigon to the 1st Military Intelligence Battalion in Saigon. And that was a great group of folks down there too. I learned quite a bit. That's where I got my writing ability and my typing ability, I think.
Yeah.
Because as those things happen in the military, and you will know, it's just a matter of being at the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And the platoon sergeant said, I need somebody who can type. And what we were doing at the time was out filling sandbags out in the hot tropical sun. And I says, I'm thinking that they're going to be typing in the office. So I raised my hand, and they made me the awards clerk.
Oh.
And that's an interesting, as you remember, military awards have a set pattern. And I use that throughout my entire time, both in the military and serving as a civilian working for the military. It was a great learning experience, and also a cool one, because I stayed with the indoor people and stayed mostly air conditioned, which I am not too unhappy about.
So you came back from Vietnam, and where did you end up next? I mean, you spent 20 years in. What were some of the other places that you went?
After Saigon, while I was in Saigon, there was a special assignment that came up in Thailand.
Okay.
And so I applied for this position to clear airspace for the Air Force reconnaissance jets to fly over South Vietnam and take their photos and do a reconnaissance. And they picked myself and one other guy who was in the 101st, and we went to Thailand for 3-4 months, something like that, to clear airspace. And also a great learning experience, because Thailand is a place where a young man can learn quite a bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And some of it may not be always the lessons you want to remember, though.
Yeah, well, some of it may not be the ones you want to share either.
Yeah, I get it. So where else did you
But
spend
then,
time at? Go ahead.
but afterwards, I re-enlisted, which everyone said, don't re-enlist. The Army is drawing down. You don't want to do that. And I says, yeah, I do. Because at the time, I got a $10,000 re-enlistment bonus. And of
Yeah.
course, I was in combat, so there was no taxes to pay. So I said, yeah, I'll re-enlist. And I got a station of choice, which was Hawaii. So I went directly there after I was in Thailand, and spent the next 3.5-4 years in Hawaii, which was also a great experience because I got to do a lot of different intelligence tasks there.
Yeah.
Some good, some not so good. Learned quite a bit about the island. My first daughter was born there. And afterwards, I went back to, didn't go back. I went to Fort Campbell, to the 101st Airborne, where I spent the next couple of years as a, what was I, platoon sergeant, section sergeant, something sergeant there. I guess section sergeant would be most appropriate. And afterwards, it was funny because we went to Reforger of 75 while I was there. You remember the Reforger exercises,
Yep.
were redeployment to forces overseas in Europe.
Yep.
And after 3 miserable months over in Europe in the winter, I came back, and the first thing I did is said, oh, you're going to Germany. I said, yeah. Big yucks. I just got back. And they said, no, go check out the, so I went in the orderly room, and they said, here's your orders for Germany. I said, you cannot be serious. But going with a family, of course, is much better. As you know, I don't know if you did get a tour of Germany, did you?
Oh yeah, I had 2 and spent a total of 9 years over there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, I was originally in Heidelberg, and then I went to Wiesbaden afterwards.
Okay.
In the 2nd Military Intelligence Battalion, and once again, I was working for the Air Force there.
Yeah.
And that was a great experience, as always. Some ups and downs. And by this time, I had 2 daughters. My second one was born when I was at Fort Campbell. And then after that, that was my 10-year mark in the military. So we rotated back to Fort Bragg. It's an interesting thing, though, which I found out much later in my military career, that you get branded, or at least during our time, you got branded. So since I started off in an airborne unit, I stayed in airborne units throughout my entire career, but I wasn't on jump status. But I found out that if you start in armor, you stay in armor, and that's just how it works. So afterwards, I went. I spent the last 10 years of my military career right there at Fort Bragg.
Okay. Wow, you were seriously homesteading then, weren't you?
Well, yeah. I had tried to go to other places. I wanted to go to Korea, but I found out that everybody in my grade and my MOS is already in Korea. And they had married themselves a Korean gal, and you couldn't pry them out with a crowbar.
Oh goodness!
So
yeah, I spent 3 tours in Korea, 3 in Korea and 2 in Germany.
Ugh.
So I hit both areas, but it's. I was just surprised that they allowed you to stay so long at Bragg, in one place, because I know that's a bit unusual. So I'm just surprised.
Indeed, but when you think about it, I was in the post-Vietnam Army, and
Yeah,
there was a lot of drawdowns going on and shuffling of people. I spent my time in 2 different battalions there. First, the first military intelligence battalion had deployed back to the Fort Bragg, so I was with them for a good long while, serving as detachment sergeant in 2 different detachments. And then I was in the Forces Command Intelligence Training Detachment as a trainer, which is where I picked up my training skills. And then I worked in the G2 shop as the NCOIC of the 18th Airborne Corps G2 for a time being, and handle in and out processing. So towards the end, they said, well, we're going to send you overseas again. I said, oh, great. I said, I've been looking for Korea. And they said, no, we're going to just send you to Germany.
Oh, no.
I said, well, okay, where are you going to send me? And they said, well, we don't know. We'll send you to the replacement battalion there. I said, well, I've always had pinpoint assignments since I was in intelligence. And they said, nah, we're just going to send you over there and put you in the replacement battalion, and we'll figure it out when we get there. And I said, I don't think so. So I told them,
was that what prompted you to retire?
That's what prompted me to retire.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. One of the things I was going to ask you next is how you knew it was time to retire. And when you said that, that's what I thought, because you're not the only person that I've talked to, of course, that has had that experience. And so you retired in what, 89? Was it
89? 20 years, 20 years and 28 days.
Yeah. Okay. So, and the interesting thing is when you talk about all these assignments that you get in the military, one of the things that I think sets some of that apart, and I think you'll agree, is the fact that, when you're in so many different places and in so many different types of jobs, you learn so much that, when you walk out of the military, you might be a jack of all trades and a master of a couple. But
exactly.
Yeah, and I noticed you were talking about your, how you started getting into your training and your training experience. So what I want to do, we're going to take a short break right now and hear from our sponsors. And then when we come back, Jim, I'm going to pick up the conversation and talk with you about your civilian career and how you got into that and what you were doing. So for those of you out there watching the show, we'll be right back after these couple of videos from our sponsors. right, welcome back, everyone, and you are watching the WGSN-DB Going Solos Veterans Corner, and our guest tonight is retired Army Sergeant First Class Jim Pritchard. And Jim, before the break, we were talking a little bit about your military time and your military experience, and you mentioned that you started to pick up some training experience, and it's kind of funny because you also mentioned earlier that you and I ran into each other at the Department of Veterans Affairs when we both worked there for a while. And I ended up actually kind of the same thing. What got me started into, in addition to my degrees, but being a certified military instructor while I was at Fort Benning is kind of what got me into teaching as an adjunct at the college. And so you were able to turn that experience in the military into a quite extensive civilian career for the government in training. So why don't you share a little bit about that with us?
I'd love to, Paul, but let me digress just for a moment and say that while you were playing your commercials, my wife was extremely interested in your Quest commercial.
Yeah, the Mother's Day.
So it looks like this is not going to be a freebie for me.
Well, don't feel bad because my wife she spends quite a bit of time there, so you would not be by yourself, and they do have some beautiful stuff.
Well, let me start off by saying that when I was at my just before my 10-year mark in the military, I started taking college courses. I had taken them from time to time, but I really got serious at the 10-year mark. And so by the time I retired from the Army, I had a master's degree. I had an associate degree from the University of Maryland. I had the Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Fayetteville State University, and then I had the Master's of Education from Campbell University. And with that background, it wasn't easy. You hear a lot of stories about people trying to get their education, but in my Army, they really worked hard to support people trying to get their education.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of nights I spent in a rainy pup tent with my little angled flashlight doing homework. So I remember those, but it was well worth it. And when I retired, what I wanted to do was to work in security because I had tried to set myself up for a job with the G2. And of course, they liked what I did there. So they said, yeah, we'd like to hire you. But when I retired, they had a moratorium on civilian hiring. So,
yeah.
But anyway, I started to work as I did get a job with the MEDAC there at Fort Bragg, and as a psychologist in the drug and alcohol program. And I spent a while as a counseling psychologist for the DISCOM of the 82nd Airborne Division. And let me tell you, if those young paratroopers knew the guys who were packing their parachutes, they might think twice before standing in that door. But I enjoyed that quite a bit. But I wanted to move ahead, and in the process, I did an interview with Special Forces, and so they hired me to be a instructional systems specialist for the officer course, the officer qualification course at Fort Bragg.
Oh.
So I spent the next 7 years with turning out Green Berets and really enjoying my life. But I found out one of the things about government work is that you have to move if you're going to make any advancement.
Yeah.
You can be happy, and I was wonderfully happy. I love the people I worked for. The mission was terrific, and the soldiers were top-notch. The staff was wonderful. But I went to a couple of schools here and there, and that's when I found out that I just wasn't going to go anywhere. And I actually started working on my PhD at the University of North Carolina, North Carolina State. But then I put in for a job in Saudi Arabia with the Army Materiel Command, and was selected. And I went over there for a promotion, of course, because I always like to have the money attached.
Sure.
And so I went over to Saudi Arabia, and I had signed on for 2 years, but only stayed for one because at the time they were bombing our buildings. So they changed my tour, and I came back. And then I went to the National Ground Intelligence Center in Charlottesville, Virginia, as a training officer. And they liked what I did so much there that they took me up to the Army Intelligence Command at Fort Belvoir for another promotion.
Yeah.
And I worked standing up a brand new land information warfare activity, which was a cyber unit. And it was a very interesting work, setting up a whole new training shop. Turns out that that's my specialty, is going in where there's no training at all and setting up training operations for an organization. But once again, I got the wanderlust, and that's when I came to the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Yeah.
They offered me another promotion, and I said, well, sure, I'll go there. And I went over to, as we met, well, I was there before you got there, a while before you got there, but I was at the headquarters, first working strictly for the Veterans Health Administration and then for the entire VA in their on their university there.
Well, let me just stop you there for a second, because I remember my time there when we worked together in VHA, and I tell me what you think. When I was there and the people that we worked with in our office, you hear a lot of criticism about the VA.
Sure.
But one thing I found was the people that we worked with when I was there, they so often expressed how seriously they took their work to support veterans.
Exactly.
Especially the VHA. And I don't know if you found that same thing, but that impressed me, what I saw.
I was always impressed. You hear a lot about exactly what you said. People saying, well, my great uncle's first cousin was treated badly by the VA. Well, that may be. It's a big organization. So there's bound to be some flubs here and there. But the people we worked with were all top notch. They were the best professionals anyone could ever work with.
Yeah.
And here again, I allied myself with all the people I could to learn as much as I could about different aspects of training and also the government too.
Yeah.
And I really learned a lot about how the government works when I worked for VA.
Yeah, I know it's a different. I never worked for DOD. I've got 21 years of civil service now, and I never worked for DOD. I spent all of my time in the executive branch agencies. And I know just going from DOD to the executive branch agencies is a climate change, so to speak.
Oh, it is. And my last 13 years, I worked for the National Transportation Safety Board as their training officer. And it was also very eye-opening because it was the classic small agency. And I think at the time I began, we had 25 small agencies in the federal government. I think that number fluctuates about that right now. And it gives you a really good insight into how government works. If you're working for DOD or VA, you're in a huge organization and you don't see everybody, or you don't see how stuff gets from one place to another except in your own little realm. But when you work for a small agency, you see soup to nuts. You see how money leaves Congress and filters down, and gets eventually put into your particular budget.
I'm
And
sorry. I just, when you said you see how money leaves Congress, and I just had to chuckle because they don't seem to be able to get the money out until like the 11th and a half hour anymore. So yeah, you're right. But it is interesting when you get involved and you can all see that firsthand.
that brings up a good point, and I'd like to put a little commercial in here for people who are considering a government career of any kind.
Yeah.
One thing I learned early on, and this was in the bigger agencies, find out where the money comes from.
Yep.
Find out where the money goes to, and learn every step along the way of how it gets from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And your success will be assured, because they will come to you and say, I need this done. And you'll say, okay, I can do it, or no, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And we were discussing off camera about contracting, and this is so true. If you don't understand government contracting, at least if you're a contracting officer representative, you have some inkling of what happens.
Yeah.
But the more you know, the better off you are.
Yeah, I mean that's always true. I it still amazes me when you talk about civil service. I'm nearing the end of mine. In fact, I intend to retire by the end of next year because I want to be like you. I want to I want to be able to retire and enjoy the rest of the time I have. But I came into government civil service, and I got morphed into contracts and have spent the best part of my career, either as a contract officer or a corps. And you're right. You learn so much in that, especially that particular part of it. But it is similar, I think, in some ways to the military, because when you do come to work for the government, you have an opportunity still to learn a myriad of skills.
Absolutely. And passing up any opportunity to learn a skill is a darn shame. When I was in the military, and I say, well, I'm going to college classes, and I heard so many people say, well, maybe that's something I'll do when I get out, or something when I retire, or I just don't have the time now. And invariably, what do you got time to do? Well, go home and watch TV, Well, that's not going to get you anywhere. So if you want to advance, the government and the military will give you that opportunity.
Yeah.
If you just try and seize it. And this is especially true in government civil service. Now, I've also worked in some part-time jobs in other agencies. I was a traffic safety instructor.
Yeah.
Like you, I taught college. I taught at a technical junior college, and I taught at a private university. And I was just amazed at the people who would just let opportunities fly past them when it was all right there for them. I had a chance. Do I have time? I had a chance once to make a movie when I was working for Special Forces. I'd never made a movie before. So I went to the appropriate offices. I learned what needed to be done. I gathered together people. I had ideas. I proposed the ideas. They were approved. I got the script writers. I got producers, cameramen, soundmen, everybody. And I learned how to make a movie, and turned out to be a lot of fun. And I got a small starring role in it. So
Immortalized on camera, right?
Oh, it's long since hit the dustbin of history, but still for a while there, every Special Forces soldier that went through Fort Bragg saw my pretty face up there.
So I know you just recently retired from civil service, and you're retired for good. And so I know you and your wife, Sherry, just got married not too long ago, right?
Indeed, we did.
Yeah.
The official line is that I tell everybody that she needed health insurance and I need another tax deduction. So it was a match made in heaven.
Well, I see her back there with her St. Patty's Day regalia on, and
Oh yeah.
so you guys are. Well, I know you said you had two kids, and I think you have two grandchildren too, right?
I 2 kids, well, now 3 grandchildren,
Three.
and we just and she has 3 kids, and one
Oh,
just got remarried, so I can't remember how many we got. I think we're into the like 14s or 15s somewhere of grandkids right now,
oh my goodness.
and one great granddaughter.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
but
You,
I want to speak a minute about second chances, if I
yeah.
may, uh, being as how that I'm of the age. In 2018, my wife died of a heart attack.
Hmm.
She passed away in my arms
Yeah.
from half a lifetime of smoking cigarettes. So if you smoke cigarettes, please stop. But Sherry's husband also died in 2018.
Wow.
And we met each other in a group that got together, widows and widowers, and had Monday night dinners and just talked about things, mostly grandkids and pets. And then we just kind of clicked after that. So uh, there's always a second chance for love.
Well, that's great. I mean, it's you're right. I mean, that really sounds like a good story, especially the way you two met. Because I have to say, I know that you guys do a lot of traveling, and I think this is the part, you're married again, and now you've got an opportunity for you guys to travel around and just enjoy things. So, do you do anything else now at this point besides just the travel? Because I know you do a lot of that.
Well, I tell her that she actually saved my life because if I hadn't met her, I'd just be sitting in my recliner just waiting for death to overtake me somehow. But traveling is something I always wanted to do. I got to travel a lot in the government, but it was always for business.
Yep, for
Go,
work. Yep.
go someplace, work, and go home. But with her, I get a chance to see the stuff that I want to see. We go to
Yeah.
museums and we go to cultural events, and uh, we've been to Broadway shows. We like Broadway, and
Hmm.
we just enjoy being out amongst friends and meeting people and talking. And I guess there's other things to do. She is a scrapbooker of some note, and I help her out with that. And when she's scrapbooking, we go to all these different places, and I just kind of goof around and enjoy myself. We
Yeah.
just came back last week from we were at Bethany Beach, Delaware, and had a great time there. There's no reason why I would ever go to Bethany Beach, but it was a surprising little community, and I can highly recommend it. No, wait a minute.
Sometimes those little unexpected places are some of the jewels that you run into.
Oh yeah, the Trout Proper is only a few blocks long and along the boardwalk, but it was a lot of fun. And
Well, sounds like you've gotten to a point where you're really able to relax and enjoy your life now. And so, Jim, you've done a lot. I mean, between your military career and 30 years civil service, and like I said, getting married again. Now you're out on adventures. But before we go though, I want to ask you one question. And if there was something you could share with the audience, a thought, one particular thought from all your experiences or whatever it may be, what is that thought you'd like to share?
don't wait. Do it now. If it's something you want to do, do it now. Do not let time pass because it
Yeah.
goes so fast. Life's so short. And if you're, one more time, if you're working for the federal government, put every dime you can into the TSP, your 401k, because that that allows us to live a nice lifestyle.
Yeah.
Amongst other things. But I'd say my closing thought would be just let yourself enjoy life now. Don't put it off, because all of a sudden it's not there anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a pretty profound thought. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on the show tonight, and I want to thank your wife for being brave enough to sit behind you on camera. She didn't make too many faces at you, so that's a good thing. But no, in all seriousness, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on and share your story and your experiences with the audience. And I wish you the best, my friend. And, since we're both up in the Northern Virginia area, I may run into you, but continue to enjoy yourself. And thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a true pleasure.
All right. And for those of you out there on our audience, as you know, near the end of each show, we put up information from either the Veterans Administration or the Veterans Health Administration or the Disabled American Veterans. So the VA has a program now, and we've got the information up on the screen with the website, Free Veterans Access to Corporate Company Mentors. And the VA is now instituting a program where they will help you and link you up as a veteran or a disabled veteran with mentors from various large and small companies across the United States, especially for those of you separating from the service, looking for a second career. This is an excellent opportunity to go on there and read about the program and see what it is they're offering to do. So there's the information up on the screen for you. So I encourage you to go take a look for those of you that may be looking for that new career. For the rest of our audience, I want to thank you tonight for joining us on the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner. Veterans out there, as always, we want to thank you and your families for your service, because we know when you serve, the family serves with you. And we hope that you will visit the Going Solo Network to look at some of our other programs. So thank you tonight to our audience, and I hope to see you again on our next show.